Hi everybody, this is Miss Cassidy with Music Theory, and today we are going to talk about time signatures and note values that go in those different time signatures, and we're also going to talk about basic kinds of rests for simple meter. So let's start with our time signatures. So just so you know, this is only for simple meter. This is only for types of meter that have a 4 or less as the bottom number. That is all we are interested in is simple meter. So what we're about to talk about with this time signature stuff does not apply to your 6/8 time signature, 9/8, 12/8, none of that. This is only for simple meter, okay? So let's talk about what the different numbers mean. We have a top number and we have a bottom number, right? So in any given time signature. So this is one that we see a lot, right? 4/4, also known as common time. This is 4/4. The top number, that top 4, refers to how many beats or counts are in any given measure. So we know that when the top number is 4, there are 4 beats per measure. 4 beats per measure. The bottom number tells you what type of note receives 1 beat. What type of note receives 1 beat? Now, what does that mean? Hold on, let me write that down. So what does that mean? The 4 here indicates that the quarter note receives one beat. 4 quarters in a whole, so 4 equals quarter, 4 quarter notes per measure. So what this time signature is telling us is that there are 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note receives 1 beat. So one measure of 4/4 is going to look like 4 quarter notes, just like this. And it can look like any combination of that. You know, it can be like a half note and 2 quarter notes, but there are 4 beats per measure, and the type of note that receives 1 beat is the quarter note. Now, this can apply to other types of time signatures as well. If we had a 3/4 at the beginning of our music, we know that the top number tells us how many beats per measure. So in this example, there's 3 beats per measure. And the bottom note tells us what type of note receives 1 beat. So that would be a quarter note. Quarter note receives 1 beat per measure. All right. Let's do a couple more difficult examples of this. Erase all this nonsense here. What if we've got a different kind of note or a different kind of number on the bottom other than 4? What does that mean? So let's do an example. Let's say that we have a time signature that looks like 3/2. 3/2. So we know easily what the top number tells us. That tells us how many beats per measure, right? 3 beats per measure. The bottom note is a 2. That's telling us what kind of note receives 1 beat. So we have to use a little bit of logic here. If the 4 indicates that a quarter note receives 1 beat, the 2 is telling us what? It's telling us that the half note receives 1 beat. There's 2 halves in a whole. The half note receives 1 beat. So let me write that down. Half note receives 1 beat. So what is this time signature telling us? 3 beats per measure, and the half note receives 1 beat. That means there are 3 half notes in every measure. So one measure of 3/2 time is going to look like 3 half notes, just like that, all right? So for today's assignment, there are 2 pages. Make sure you do both pages, but the first page asks you to add up some notes to tell you how many beats. So for example, it might ask you to add a half note plus a quarter note, and that's going to tell us that that is 3 beats in 4/4 time. All right. And then you also have to draw bar lines and a double bar at the end for the appropriate notes in the following examples. So there are 4 beats in each measure. So it'll be self-explanatory, but if you have trouble with that, please reach out to me. The other thing that we have to do today is lesson 9, which is whole, half, and quarter rest. So we're going to talk about different types of rest today. This is going to be a review for almost all of us. But we are most interested in these types of rest today. This first squiggly one that is a little bit challenging to draw, I'm not going to lie to you, is called a quarter rest. Quarter rest. It is the same value as a quarter note, right? The quarter rest, if you're going to draw it, I always start with kind of like this Z shape, and then I make a C in this direction. Now that's not exactly right. Like there's no way to perfectly reproduce what a quarter rest looks like. that they make with the computer, right? But so just do your best, get some sort of squiggle and a loop, and I'll give you credit for that, for drawing your quarter rests. This is a quarter rest. In 4/4 time, it receives 1 beat. 1 beat. Woo! Great. Quarter rests. All right, these two types of rests look really similar to each other. This first one looks like a hat. Hat. We call that a half rest. That's how I always remember it. It looks like a hat. It's a half rest. Half rest. And that receives 2 beats. 2 beats. Last one we have here, this is a whole rest. And that receives 4 beats. I remember that because it looks like a hole in the ground. This looks like a hole. Half rest, whole rest. It's really easy to get those mixed up, so make sure you're paying very close attention when you're reading music. Is it a half rest? Does it receive 2 beats? Or is it a whole rest and receives 4? Today, you have to do some more meter addition. You need to add up different types of notes to say how many beats they have. And then you get to practice drawing these different types of rests. So just please make sure that you're paying attention to that and getting that turned in. Please reach out to me if you have any problems. See y'all soon.